Hello, everybody. It's 18th of January 2022, and one more spiritual light is Sorry?
2023.
Oh, yeah, I'm still in 2022. Yeah, okay, forgive me. Yeah, so 2023, yes. So, welcome, everyone. Spiritual light starting, and today Nadja is with us. So, good to have you all here. Thank you for your time. I can see people are joining. So while everyone joined, let's go to the introduction. So, Charles, let me start with you because I'm seeing the girls are having some problems with the internet.
Yes, Stevan, thank you. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone. Very happy to be here again to talk a little bit about these particular types of mediumship concerning apparition and transfigurations. So, bonsoir à tous. Merci de votre présence. On va vous parler un peu de médiumnité ce soir, des apparitions et les transfigurations.
Good. Miss Gibbons, good evening.
Hello, good evening, everyone. Nice to be here again for this another live with a different subject, which is very important for the understanding of mediumship, and that there is nowhere better explanations about apparitions and things than in Spiritism that we find. So it's going to be promises to be a really good, informative session. So, boa tarde para todos. Prazer estar de novo aqui, falando sobre um assunto importante, que tem uma boa explicação dentro do Espiritismo, e bem-vindo a todos. Que Jesus nos abençoe.
Thank you, my dear. Labas, Nadja.
Labas vakaras, labai atsiprašau, buvo triukšmų čia. I'm sorry, there was a little bit of problem with the internet, so I have my phone now. Taip, šiandien kalbėsime apie dvasių pasirodymus, apie transfiguraciją, kaip, kada, kodėl vyksta dvasių pasirodymai. Ir tai bus labai įdomu, tikiuosi, kad jums patiks. Ir jeigu turėsite klausimų, prašom parašykti bet kada. Labas ir enjoy. I'm mixing up everything now.
Yeah, now mix Portuguese with English and
Portuguese? Okay. We have already spoken a little bit about apparitions and transfigurations in previous lives, but just touched the topic, and I think today we're going to be explaining a little bit more according to Spiritism. Hope you enjoy it, and if you have any questions, just write on the chat and we will try to answer it.
Okay, thank you. Well, first of all, I want to ask apologies because I had a problem with the video and I could not download the video. I cannot stream the video. So today we have no video. So I'm sorry. Technical fault, and the problem is the piece behind the keyboard. But while we fix this technical problem here, I promise next Wednesday we will have our video. So my introductory text today comes from the Spiritist Review from March 1859. I haven't read this the Spiritist magazine from that year. When I was reading to do the introduction today, I was amazed. I was amazed. So let's see what I could grasp from the entire text. The phenomenon that is the object of this article has already been communicated to us a long time ago, which is the object is the specifically our topic today, apparitions and transfiguration. And Kardec keeps saying, if we have yet to mention it, it is because it is not our intention to make this journal a simple catalog of facts destined to feed curiosity, an arid compilation without appreciation or comments. Our task would be very easy, and we take it more seriously. First, we address men of reason, those who, like us, want to know things at least as far as we can. Now, experience has taught us that facts, however strange and multiplied they may be, are by no means elements of conviction, and they will be less so the stranger they are. The more extraordinary a fact is, the more abnormal it seems to us, and the less willing we are to give it credit. Hey, Charles, Kardec lucidity here is amazing, isn't it? Kardec keep going. We want to see, and when we see, we still doubt. We distrust illusion and connivance. This is no longer the case when we find a plausible cause for the facts. Every day we see people who once attributed spiritist phenomena to the imagination and blind credulity, and who today are fervent followers precisely because now the phenomena are no longer repugnant to their reason. They explain them, understand their possibility, and believe in them, even without having seen them. Before speaking of certain facts, we had to wait until the fundamental principles were sufficiently developed to understand their cause. The transfiguration is, in fact, it is in that number. For us, Spiritism is more than a belief. It is a science, and we are happy to see that our readers understand it. Amazing, Kardec here. Amazing here. Wow, how tangible, how fits on the ground he has here. So even though you say something, our first thing is deny. Then we study. They have this transfiguration article for many years, but they didn't say anything because they didn't have at that time the fundamentals, the basis to explain it. It's not, and like today we seeing people what am I gonna say? And today we see people codifying books and goes to the printer and is out without checking the story, without checking the facts, without checking if this makes sense according to the Spiritism. See, this is just a small comment here. Keep it between us. Don't put it in the internet. Okay. Charles, in order to allow us to understand the apparition and transfiguration have a material effect, how does it work?
That's a very extensive, short question, but not easy to answer in a short time. So, as Kardec just explained in the excerpt you have read, Spiritism is really a science, and all the facts needs to be carefully studied in order to try to identify what is the most probable cause for them, and to try to have also an explanation that explains the majority, or ideally all the facts which we are seeing. So you mentioned, Stevan, two things. You mentioned apparitions and transfigurations. Okay. So in the case of apparition, the direct answer to your question, is there a material effect? No, not mandatory. It can be, but it's not necessary. Okay. What is an apparition? Is when some person who has generally a mediumistic faculty, the faculty to see the spirits, sees indeed a spirit, okay, or sees someone beside her or whatever. So the first thing, it can be a spirit of someone who already passed away, but it can also be a spirit of someone who is still living. Both cases have been observed several times. And how it works, I will try to make it very short. All the spirits, including ourselves, of course, which are incarnated, have the so-called spiritual body. In Spiritism, we say perispirit, perispirit. Okay, so this is what enables these disincarnated spirits, the spirits which are not incarnated anymore, to be visible. Without these perispirits, they couldn't. It's because the spiritual body is done of matter, as I explained already, but it's not matter in the same format, with the same particles, with the same density as the matter physics is studying scientifically here on the Earth. Okay, the quantum physics, general relativity laws, and so on, are studying the matter. The matter goes from the light, which are photons, it's material, going through all the particles and all the different forms as per the Mendeleev table and as per the table of particles and so on. This is so-called matter. But the spiritual body is not done out of this matter. It is not visible in the normal state. Okay? So to have an apparition, so someone enabled to see a spiritual entity in front of him, for instance, needs some conditions to be gathered. First, the spirit has to work on his spiritual body in order to make it more dense, so that it can be perceived by the seer, the medium. Second, he must also combine somehow. There must be an affinity, a combination between the perispirit of the spirit who wants to appear and the perispirit of the medium who wants to see him. Without this affinity, he will not become visible, albeit all the efforts he can do. So the phenomenon will not occur. And the third thing is the medium. He needs also to be in a kind of a receptive state in order to perceive. And if these three conditions are gathered, the seeing medium can see the spiritual entity in front of him, even in the awake state. It doesn't need to be in trance or something like that. Okay, so this is roughly how apparitions happens. So it's like a mediumistic communications, for instance, through psychography, automatic writing, is also a combination between the communicating spirit, spiritual body, with the spiritual body of the medium, in order to have the connection done, to act on the motor center in the brain and to make him write a message. Okay, so in this case, you can see there is no necessary of material effect or physical effect. Okay. Now these are for apparitions, and there are several examples all along the centuries, even the millenniums. One example I could maybe mention is when Maria Maddalena, how did you say that in English? Silvia?
Mary Magdalene.
Mary Magdalene. When Mary Magdalene went to the tomb of Jesus, and he was not there anymore, and then she could see Jesus. So this is typically an apparition. Okay, if there would be another person aside Mary Magdalene, maybe this other person would not see Jesus as Mary Magdalene saw it. Okay, this is typically the apparition. Okay, if in another case, for instance, when Jesus met his apostles at the Pentecosts in a closed room and became not only visible but also tangible at the point that Thomas could touch him, could touch the wand and make sure it was really Jesus, that was not an apparition anymore. That was a materialization. Okay, and materialization, yes, this is physical effect. It needs a medium capable of physical effects and emitting some ectoplasm out of his physical body in order to enable the spirit to give a shape to this ectoplasm and to materialize at the point of being visible, but not for all the presents, even if they are not medium, but not only visible, but also tangible. They could touch him. Whilst with Mary Magdalene, it was not the case. Jesus even said to her, "Don't touch me because I'm not yet." I don't remember exactly how he said it, but he was not materialized. He was
I
only
still have
appearing
not
to
gone
her.
to my father.
Yes, I still have not gone to my father. This means if Mary Magdalene would try to touch him, her hand would go through the apparitions because it was not tangible. And how does Mary Magdalene perceive this apparition? It is not through her eyes, her physical eyes. It is through her soul. So it's a perception which comes in the perispirit through the spiritual body, which is then transmitted or decodified in the brain as an image, as an apparition. Okay, so that's for apparitions. Now, the second question was also talking about transfiguration, and there the story is a little bit different. So the transfiguration happened by the way also with Jesus. There was a transfiguration, I think, on the Tabor mountain. This famous phenomenon that has also been observed several times along the millenniums, the centuries, and even recently, or at the time of Kardec, and even after. That is a different phenomenon. So you have in front of you a person, and of a sudden, this person is looking like if it would be another person. Okay, so and the people which are here can all see this person with a different shape. And Kardec observed in the city of Saint-Étienne in France a young lady who had this faculty to have transfiguration. And there was even controlled, for instance, that the weight was even changing or increasing or decreasing, depending if the transfiguration was bigger or if the transfiguration was a child. Okay, and then in this type of phenomenon, there is a physical effect. So it is somehow the perispirit of the medium through the influence of maybe the entity who wants to appear through the transfiguration, but then making a physical effect or that everyone in the room can visualize a person in a different person than the medium or the person who was in front of them. Okay. So this transfiguration, then there are other phenomena, but you didn't ask for. For instance, you have also persons who can living, like for instance, it's not my case, but Euripides Barzanulfo, for instance, which was a medium in Brazil. He was a teacher, so in his college in Sacramento, giving teaching to his scholars. And all of a sudden, they saw him like if he would be a little bit, how to say, not here, huh? But they still could see him here. And at the same time, the spirits and the spiritual body, or the perispirit of Oedipus Barzanulfo, went out of his body and materialized somewhere in where he went in order to assist, for instance, a lady who was getting a baby, something like 10 or 20 kilometers away. And the people in that place were absolutely sure that he was physically with them, which was not the case. So this is what we call, now I'm not exactly sure to say it, how to say it in English. It's chapter 6 and chapter 7 of the Medium's book. Huh?
It's by corporeity.
Exactly,
Corporeity.
Bicorporeity. So it's a variant of this phenomenon. So as you can see, it's not so simple to explain, but I think I stressed the main items, and should there be any question, I will be happy to answer. Thank you for your attention.
Yeah, we have already a question. Vladas, long time we don't see you here, Vladas. Thank
Don't
you.
see.
And Vlada's asking, can an obsessed person has his physical appearance, especially his face, transfigured?
I think it can happen, yes. As it can happen with a normal person, it can happen with an obsessed person.
Absolutely.
And in that case, probably the obsessor appearing, okay? Because a person which is suffering from an obsession will hardly be capable, even if this person is medium, to get some communication through another spirit, because the obsessor is really, how to say, like securing, taking power and control of the spiritual and, by way of consequence, the physical body of the obsessed person. So it's very difficult in that state having another spirit, another one, coming and capable of doing a phenomenon. Okay, but it can happen, yes.
It's a symbiotic connection, isn't it? When the two are so connected that you can see the face of the obsessor rather than the person, isn't it?
So sometimes it is, with the muscles of the face, you can have another shape. Huh? But the real transfiguration is the face is completely changing. So it is somehow the spiritual body, which is making like if it is a mask around the physical body of the medium. Okay, and the spiritual body then gets visible. And this is the real phenomenon of transfiguration. And the more interesting, as I told, is a person which was adult, transfigurated into a child. So the size was smaller, and the weight that they measured was also lower. So this is typically then confirming that there is a material effect involved. But these phenomena are quite rare. They are not so common.
Yeah. Okay, good. Thank you, Charles. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So now we can go to Ms. Gibbons. And Ms. Gibbons, your question is, what was the transfiguration of Jesus on the Mount Tabor?
Okay.
Easy one.
Charles explained. I mean, just if I may, before I go into the question itself, because in this medium's book, if you want to study about this phenomenon, in the medium's book, in part 2, the second part in items, chapter 7, you have this thing about transfiguration and items 1 to 2 to 1 to 5. And he explains that transfiguration is a phenomenon that consists in the change of aspect of a living body. In certain cases, it may be simply caused by muscular contraction, which may render the person no longer recognizable. And this is important to understand, like Charles already went through in details, but that what is a phenomenon that it completely changes. And in sometimes it's only the muscles that change and the appearance is completely different. So in a way, the question that Vlad has asked, when a person is under obsession in almost a symbiotic relationship with the obsessor, you may look at them and you see the face of the obsessor rather than the person who's suffering the obsession. Now, talking something more, a lot better, the Jesus in Mount Tabor. This is part of, is in the Gospel according to St. Mark in chapter 9, and it's item 2 to 13. And you also find it in the second epistle of Peter, when he reminds people about what happened. That's Jesus was transfigured. He took John and Peter and James to the mount by themselves, and they saw Jesus change completely. And he says, what Mark says was that he was completely transfigured. His face and clothes became dazzlingly bright. And he became like a radiant white light. He was so amazing. It was like the light of his spirit. And I think in that was the light of Jesus, because he is a spirit of the highest, a Christic spirit of the highest level. So that was his light. And then the apostles, the disciples were with him, saw Moses and Elijah with him. And he was talking to them, but first he transfigured to be able to speak to them. And of course, they were quite afraid. And I think in that sense, with this phenomenon, and I think when sometimes the spirits of light appear, I think this light comes through, because when we see paintings, we always see like an aura. They always paint like an aura behind the Virgin Mary or any saint. And I think because that's the light of the spirit that, the painters are trying to portray, because they see it. And that, I think, is a different situation, because in a way, Jesus was showing his light. He was talking to, and Peter came to him and said, we should have 3 tabernacles done, built here, for you, one for Moses, one for Elijah. And Jesus said, don't say anything to anybody until I have risen from the dead. And that, of course, came more questions, because they were asking themselves, when will you come out from the dead? Jesus was preparing them. And it's interesting, because in almost many situations in the Gospels that we see, when Jesus had something important to show, he would always take the 3 of them. In the Gethsemane, before he was arrested, there was always Peter, John, and James, the 2 brothers, the sons of Zebedee. And this is a very different thing, I think, because in a way it was almost like Jesus was showing his spirit, his very spirit, to them, was his light. He was already pure light. He's pure light already. And one day we're going to get there, aren't we? I hope so. I am sure I am.
Fingers crossed.
It may take a little longer, a few millennia, but
we are working it.
Yes,
we are working it.
Yes. It's like in the Spirit's book, it says it's a destiny. So we cannot escape it. We're going to be spirits of light because we are already. So I think this is a very important, because also an explanation actually that I read, I thought was curious to say to you, is that Jesus, when he was transfigured, his face and his clothes were completely dazzling. And that is an expression that it appears like showing the temporal world with the heavenly world, with the eternal. And Jesus was the connection. Somehow he wanted to show us this connection between the temporal, the passing, the physical body, and the spiritual body that eventually we come to be pure light. And this connection, it was him. I thought that was very, very interesting. And in the epistle of Peter, he was talking about Jesus, and he says, because we saw him, that he, in a way, he was trying to say that Jesus was divine because they saw him transform. And so just to confirm that he was this amazing light spirit. He was the master of all. So I think that is a very important thing. That was the transfiguration of Jesus in Mount Tabor. That's it. So anybody wants to ask questions, I think that's it.
Good. Well, again, this is a horrible comparison. It's a horrible comparison, but perhaps it is what people understand about transfiguration. I think is the movie Poltergeist, when that lady assumes the face, So can we say that that's it? Okay, forget about the movie things. That let's focus on the phenomena, but that we can say could be a real case of transfiguration.
Yes, it is, because, in the explanation of the Spirit's book, it says the phenomenon that consists of the change of the aspect of a living body. And sometimes it's just a muscular change that occurs. Is because we know that the perispirit, actually, I think Charles mentioned it, but the perispirit is a spiritual body. Is made of a different kind of matter than a physical body. It's more flexible, it's malleable. So sometimes people will change their even when you're working in mediumship and you're working with the spirit, sometimes your face changes as well. And it's that malleability of the perispirit that allows it. So it depends on the spirit that is there. They can look terribly ugly, and they can be, and in case of Jesus was beauty that we cannot even comprehend. But it is the same phenomenon in different levels. It depends on the level of the spirit. I don't know if you agree, Charles, with that. And it is possible to change. It is one of the phenomena that actually happen.
Charles?
Yes, sorry, I fully agree, Silvia. Our spiritual body is basically what is shaping our physical body somehow. Physical body is composed of the bricks which are coming from our father and mother, with a combination of DNA. But how to say, even the selection of the chromosome XY of the which ovule and which spermatozoid is will at the end combine to make it is something which is governed by the spiritual body magnetically. And but now the thing is, when a person is taking a shape of a different person during how to say, a couple of seconds or minutes at the maximum, and then coming back to its normal shape, so the action of the spiritual body on our physical body is not so spontaneous. So it is something on top of it, which changes the appearance during that short period. Okay, but the spirit which is not incarnated, which is in the spiritual world, he can indeed, by ideoplasty, make objects, and also through his the power of his thought, giving his perispirit a different aspect. And this is what generally what happens when the spirits are appearing to someone. They take not always the aspect they had in their last life, but they can take an aspect from a previous life, and they do that in order to be recognized. Yeah? So, and this is just by will. And just by will, the spirit can shape its spiritual body. When we are incarnated, it's not so, how to say, it's not so fluid, not so easy, not so quick. But indeed, well, a lot of illnesses come from the perispirit. If we have, how to say, bad thoughts and so on, it ends up making our physical body ill as well.
Yeah, I think that's interesting, because sometimes people say, oh, if they saw someone from their family or something, yeah, I don't know if it was him because he looked so young. And of course, the person, can transfer. They'll look old and decrepit. They can look quite youthful and strong, and they can make that change. But I think, one thing that you're saying, Charles, sometimes when a person is very bad, in a very bad mood, and they have a lot of negative thoughts, and they are angry with someone, sometimes you see this change. It's like a carcass seems to come out, and even if you pass the person in the street, you don't know them, but you know that they seem to have a mask on. It's almost like there is a part, something in front of them, because we can change. We can change our face as well sometimes. Yeah. That's why it's good to have positive thoughts, think nice things, because then, when you have positive thoughts and you are sort of thinking about good things, it's interesting. You go in a street and everybody looks at you, smiles at you. It's very funny like that. Sometimes there is days that you go out and literally every single person stop and smile, which is good, I think.
There are some videos online that you see when people start laughing from nothing in the tube, in the underground, and then everybody around start laughing as well, because that's like laugh and happiness is contagious, because that's the vibration, called energy and vibration. And if you are in the high level, high vibration, and feeling loved, and sharing your love to everybody else, and then everybody thinks like, oh, okay, yeah, she looks young, or he looks younger, and looks happier, because maybe he's in love or she's in love, that's why she looks so young. And the contrary as well. That's why all this like people who are mean and angry and violent, they look not beautiful and scary even, and then this is the vibration that they are emanating. So I think that's all about energy as well.
Yeah. And before we go into your question, Nadja, I have another question for you. From the sign, I have to ask this because you are here. From the science point of view, what to say for something like this? How we can prove, how we can say on a rational way, okay, this is it, this is happening?
Well, according to we have this periodic table of elements, chemical elements. Then we all know from school, hydrogen and oxygen, and all they are organized in a table, and they were organized in a way that they have some space between some elements that we are still discovering. Yeah, and in this table we have like 118 elements so far. But as we all know from the universe now, we know, I think, 4%, and that is known to us, that is in the universe so far. So it's like there's a lot to be discovered and a lot still to be put in this table, probably. And according to André Luiz in his evolution into words, that he, or in the domains of mediumship, I think it's evolution into words, that he says about the elements of the periodic table, and then he says that these elements are the same in the spiritual body and our physical body, but in different vibration state. No? So because we're still trying to discover many things that we don't know and how to explain it. No? So this vibration that we have in our bodies, they are much, much higher in much more the energy is so strong that we cannot measure. No? That's why some people say that, because of the marks in the when Jesus discarnated, and there was a mark. What's the name of this? It came out of my mind now. That they have the face on this oh my God, I forgot the name. Silvia?
Is it the Turin shroud? Is it the Turin shroud that you're talking about? They have Jesus in the cloth.
Yes.
Is the Turin shroud? It's called the Turin shroud.
Oh,
yes,
okay,
because it was found in Turin in Italy.
Yeah, so that was like, there's so much power in it that it got imprinted in the cloth. And when we think about this table, that's why I start talking about the periodic table, is because it contains phosphorus. No? And phosphorus is one of the elements that in contact with oxygen, it shows a little bit of light, the white phosphorus, no? In contact with oxygen, and then you can see like a glow, white glow. And phosphorus is a component of the phosphate, and phosphate is part of a fundamental part of life, in our life, and is part of our, also a component of our DNA. So, and then when we start thinking about these things, and then we make connections, like we have DNA, we have phosphorus, and phosphorus is part of this element of the periodic table, but it has so much energy that it's very reactive, and so like, and then you start making, and it makes in contact with oxygen light. So then you say like, okay, apparitions, manifestations, or materializations, they could have this phosphorus content in our spiritual body and in our physical body. That's why we see spirits, or we see the materialized spirit, because it contains the same elements, but then in different vibration. And because we need this medium to make this connection, and the ectoplasm, because ectoplasm is also our extra physical energy of and from the fluid, universal cosmic fluid, so it's all connected. And for me, it's very interesting, and the more we read about the evolution into words, and it's just like mind-blowing of medicine and physics and chemistry, and it's very, very interesting. I really recommend people to read and reread and make these comparisons. That's why we need to think, not just read and just for reading, or even the spirit's book, a medium's book. There's so much information there that we can read and reread and get these associations of our daily life.
Great.
I make sense? Yeah. Did you understand, or I went too far?
But I think this is interesting because in what you read, Stevan, you were saying what Kardec was saying, that we still had a lot to learn. And I think nowadays, I mean, you know, you mentioned the André Luiz books, all of them really, you know. No Mundo Maior, it has the thing about the brain that now we are discovering, you know, and they wrote, I think with one paragraph from that book, they wrote a book of 600 pages about the triune brain. So there, you know, as science advances, we will find that things that is in Kardec, is in André Luiz books, you know, we still to learn so much more, because, you know, in the Spirit's book, when he talks about there is no vacuum in space, and how the universe was created with a primitive fluid, a secondary fluid, and all matter was made from the secondary fluid. I imagine that people who were reading that at the time had no idea what he was talking about. And many of the André Luiz books, that they had no idea. And, you know, like when they have this accident and people are there in the accident with these machines on their hands and transmitting to the ones in their hand and showing to the screen, is exactly what's happening now. And he's talking about this in 1940s, you know, so there's so much to learn.
And about the pineal gland as well. I'm sorry to
Oh God, yes,
yes. The pineal gland is something that is more obvious. Well, still a lot of studies, but you know, like that time he was talking about it, and now we know that the pineal gland is not just a reminiscence of some part of some gland, but the most important gland that controls all the other glands. So it's like very interesting.
And it was 12 years later, after the Missionaries of Light was published, that they actually discovered the hormones that the gland, you know,
melatonin, yeah.
So we are so privileged, you know. I feel that we are very privileged, and we have a responsibility to, you know.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons I think we are here in this spiritual light, to inform people, because we are privileged to speak Portuguese and learn, read all these books. And of course, now we are having all these books in English and other languages, but still we have in Brazil study groups of each of the books, and the medical association also in Brazil, so many different medical associations, spiritist medical associations that study all these books scientifically, and each part. Still a lot to learn, still a lot to discover, still a lot to show to everybody in English. But one of the reasons we're here is to inform people about it.
Yeah. Okay. And well, I think you already answered the questions, because one of the questions I had to Nadja is if a spirit can change the appearance. Like, for example, a son show up to mom in a way and the daughter in another way, you know. So how is this feasible?
I think depends on it is, but depends on the level, the moral, spiritual level of the spirit. Because if we are still too attached to the matter, and still connected with lower thoughts and this vibrational state, then low vibrational state, then we are not able, capable, or allowed to do it. But if you are in a higher spiritual level, then they can show to us in many forms, good forms, and sometimes to send a message in our dreams, or as apparitions, or as we can see in dreams most of the time, the the perispirit of the spirit. But then, if we are allowed, no, as allowed by God, by the higher level, high evolved spirits, and then we can show ourselves as one of our incarnations. But if we are known as someone else, then to show to this person also a message, to send a message, then we can appear in another form. But I think it's only if we are allowed to as well. We have to have allowance from the higher spirits.
But I
It's
think
not
one thing
just
as well,
activation.
Nadja, sorry,
No,
I beg
sorry.
your pardon. I thought you had stopped.
No.
I think
That's
sometimes also happens as well when a person dies, you know, someone who's very dear to you and you're far away. Sometimes they come to say goodbye. And you
yeah.
see the person there in front of you and everything, and you have a feeling that person, and then later on you see, oh yes, you know, they died exactly at the time they came to say goodbye to you. So it's
Yeah. That's the power of the thought as well. So this connection, and spirits can radiate their light, their image to more people at the same time. No? So as a spirit and as the perispirit, is to come to show, I'm leaving, or the person who left already, and then they come to the bedside visitors that appear to people who are almost in the palliative situation sometimes, and then they see their loved ones, sometimes their pets as well. So some animals appears as well to come to comfort the person and to show that everything is going to be okay.
Yeah. And I think one thing that Charles said today as well, that I think is always very important to remember, is that we see those spirits, if they have gone to the spiritual world, we don't see them with our physical eyes, we see them with our perispirit eyes as well, because even if you close your eyes, you still see them. And that's very strange. You know, the first time that happened, when it happened to me anyway, I say, and I thought, no, I can't see it. It's not possible. And then I kept closing my eyes, but then I saw it even better. And I think what Charles said is very important to remember that you know, even if you close your eyes, it's spiritual eyes who actually see the spirit, doesn't it? Yes.
Yeah. Who hasn't had a dream with someone who has already died, or I think everybody has. I can say that nobody can say that. Oh no, I never dreamed, or I never dreamed with anyone. You have. And that's it.
Wonderful discussion. I love
But
it.
one thing as well, sometimes you may dream with a person and you know who they are because you're talking to that. I mean, it happened to me. I'm sure that must happen to everybody. I was talking to this person. I knew who the person was, but it was different from what I remembered. And I think Charles was saying something about the person also appearing in a certain way. So they may appear with a different image what they had in the previous life or something, but you know who they are. It's a very strange sensation that you know the person, but their face is different. You know, it when you dream with them.
I like that. Yeah.
So it's fascinating.
Carol, you want to say something?
No, I'm just listening and learning with our two ladies today. A very interesting conversation indeed.
Yeah.
And Nadja made very well to remember that, how to say, when you have a dream, it's often an apparition, but we are sleeping. We are not in the wake state. The apparition itself, the real one, is in the wake state. But when we, during our dream, when our spirit with his spiritual body gets free from the body temporarily during the sleep, he can, of course, also see, perceive the spirits around him. And then sometimes keep the memory when he is waking up. The phenomenon is very similar.
Yeah, I think I can say also that most people also has seen an apparition. You know, it has seen a spirit. How many times you looked and then you looked again and no, oh, I thought I saw a child there. Oh no, oh I thought I saw an elderly lady. Or it happened to me in a church. It happened to me in a park, and you just like you looked and then you looked again and just like, oh, I thought I saw someone. You can even describe the person or the spirit, and this is an apparition. It's not just
Yeah.
my imagination, hallucination. How can it be if I never seen this child before or never seen that lady before? Like,
Yeah.
yeah. So I think it happens to anyone if we start thinking like, oh, or start paying attention to these events as well. And it just, I think, happens to everyone because we are all mediums, and
Yeah. But I
even
think we
students.
cannot do as well, can't we? I mean, sometimes we can go somewhere. If we're thinking
Yeah.
about the person, especially if we're concerned about them because they're not well or something, it's almost like you keep thinking about them. Suddenly you almost see them where they are. And so we ourselves can also move because we are also spirits.
Yeah.
So,
And also this,
um,
the same thing I remember now, just when, I was thinking about you, and then the person, rings you or sends you a message, or the next day even, send a message and then, or an email or something like that. And then, oh, I was thinking about you, and that's the connection. Yeah, that's
yeah,
how we get connected as well. Yeah.
it's interesting.
Great. Thank you, my friends. Let's go
Thank
to
you.
announcements. Let me see here.
So, I think this sort of things that we are talking today reminds one of what Shakespeare said, in Hamlet. He said, there are more things between heaven and earth, Horatio, than is dreamt in your philosophy. And all this phenomenon is just beginning to learn about it. Thank God for the medium's book and the spirit's book and contact.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Our next topic is the action of spirits upon the fluids. And this talk it's on the 25th of January 2023, next Wednesday, 9 p.m., as you know. So we will talk about it. And let me go here. And we will have a first Sunday of February. We keep going, giving the series of talking about Gabriel Delan, and our friend Alexandre Caldini will talk about Gabriel Delany and what he's saying about reincarnation. Okay, so don't miss it. It's every first Sunday of the month from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. London time. We will always have a different one. Last month was Charles, and then Caldini, and so on. And in March, if I'm not wrong, it is Roberto Tanabe. Okay, so from the 2nd to 12th of February, our friend Florencio Anton will be in London giving some mediumistic workshops in painting. You can see the full his agenda at the bottom of the folder here. So also he go, yeah, no, so everything is London here. Okay, so
He's going to be outside of London as well, Maidenstead.
Yeah, in Maidenhead
And on the 4th and on the 6th, it's going to be in English. They have interpreters.
On the 4th and on the 6th.
Yes, because on the 4th you'll be at the Spiritualist Association of Great Britain.
Okay.
So be it, and Kingston Spiritualist Church as well. They both will be interpreted in English. So if anybody is interested, it will be in English.
Great, thank you, my dear. Guilherme Diaz, it's going with the study of the book No Solar every other Tuesday from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. The meeting ID and passcode, it's on popping up on your screen. So if you want to join, no problem. Every Saturday, 10:30 a.m. London time, we have the Mediums book course with Guilherme Diaz, Munir, and Charles. And every other Tuesday, we have Guilherme Diaz and Rafael Caldas having conversations on mediumship. And that's it. That's it for today. Job done.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for the presence, for listening, for sharing.
Yeah, well, yes. Thank you. Thank you, Nadja. Thank you, Vladas. Thank you, Charles. Thank you, Silvia.
Thank you.
For your time.
Thank you, Stevan.
Always nice
Thank
to
you,
have
Stevan.
you. Thank you. I'll see you next Wednesday. Thank you, my friends. Bye-bye.
Have a blessed week. Bye. Goodbye.
Bye.
God bless. Bye.